Okay guys, today we are actually starting Unit 2, and it's going to be day 1 of Unit 2 for us. And the lesson is on absolute value equations, so we are going to be solving absolute value equations today. And we just had some practice with solving equations in your warm-up, so hopefully that's got your memory refreshed on the steps for solving an equation. So let's start off with what is absolute value. So the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0 on the number line. So since distance is always positive, the absolute value of a number is also always positive. So you just got to remember that it's actually talking about the distance from 0 when you see those absolute value bars. So we're going to start with two easy examples. So it says solve the absolute value of x equals 3. So just think about it as the number of spaces from 0. So it says absolute value of x equal to 3. So there's two numbers that I could actually put in place of x here. So if this is the distance from 0 on the number line, that's 3 places. So x could be positive 3, but then x could also be negative 3, because that would give me a distance of 3 units from 0. Absolute value is always positive, so if I put negative 3 here, our answer would still be positive 3. So this is an example of when an absolute value equation can have two solutions. Okay, so then the next one says solve the absolute value of x equal to negative 3. This tells us the absolute value of a number is always positive. X is representing a number. This is not positive. So this is going to be no solution. And I'm just going to put remember the absolute value of a number is always positive. So in this case, an absolute value equation could have 0 solutions. So now let's work a little more complicated example. So on example 1 here, it asks us to evaluate an expression with absolute value. So 1.4 plus the absolute value of 5y minus 7 if y equals negative 3. So we're just going to substitute. So we're going to have 1.4 plus the absolute value of 5. Anytime we substitute, we want to put it in parentheses. And then you're just going to evaluate from there. So 1.4 plus the absolute value. You're going to multiply here. So 5 times negative 3 is going to give us negative 15 minus 7. 1.4 plus the absolute value of, that would give us negative 22. And then the absolute value of any number is always the positive. So at that point, you're going to drop the bars, and we'll just add that to get 23.4 as your answer. So our next example is asking us to evaluate this expression if x equals 4. So we're just going to simply substitute in and then evaluate. So 2.7 plus the absolute value of 6 minus 8. So 2.7 plus the absolute value of negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. So our answer is 4.7. So that's evaluating an absolute value expression. Now we're going to solve equations. So there's basic steps here for you. If you will follow these steps, it should be pretty simple steps. for you to go by. So the first step is to isolate the absolute value expression. So that word means get by itself. So we're going to get the absolute value expression by itself. Once you do that, you're going to drop the absolute value bars and you're going to make two equations, one positive and one negative. You will solve for your two equations. Check your solutions by substituting your solutions to your original equation and seeing if they work. Okay, so I put here, remember, you cannot distribute through the absolute value sign. So it's not like parentheses. So if we have a negative in front of the bars, you do not distribute. All right, so we'll start out pretty simple here. Our first one, remember, your goal in solving an equation is to get the variable by itself. So step one says get the absolute value expression by itself. If I want the bars by themselves, we're going to divide by 3. So that'll leave us the absolute value of x minus 18 is equal to 5. So that's step 1. Step 2 says drop the bars and set up two equations, one positive, one negative. So I'm going to drop the bars, set up the positive, drop the bars, set it equal to the negative. So what's in your absolute value bar is going to stay the same. You're going to set it equal to the positive value and to the negative value. Step 3 then says solve your two equations. So x is 23. And x is 13. One of the most important steps here is to check your solutions back into your original equation. And if we wanted to do that really quick with our calculator, we would do 3. We're going to hit math, over to number, absolute value. And if we're saying our solution is 23, we're going to put 23 minus 18 in the bars. You want to arrow right to get out and hit enter. You can see that that does equal 15. Let's try x equals 13. So 3, math, over to number, hit your absolute value bars. We're going to substitute 13 in this time, hit enter, and you can see that it's equal to 15. So we've checked both solutions. We know those are good. So our next example gives us the absolute value of 5x minus 6 plus 9 equal to 0. So the first thing we would do is get the bars by themselves, so we would subtract 9. That's going to leave us the absolute value of 5x minus 6 equals negative 9. So your first instinct is to drop the bars and set your two equations up. But if you remember, the absolute value cannot equal a negative. So your answer is no solution. And I'll just put right here as a no absolute value. Can't be equal to a negative. The next two examples are you-try or to-do problems for you guys. So A and B on your notes, if you want to pause the video for a second, work these on your own, and then if you can come back, I'll show you how to solve these. Okay, we're back. Hopefully you had a chance to work those. The first thing we're going to do is get the bars by themselves. So we would subtract 5. Again, absolute value cannot be equal to a negative, so A should have been no solution. B, to get our bars by itself, we would need to divide by 2. So we have the absolute value of y plus 3 equals 8. positive number, so you're ready to drop the bars. Set it equal to the positive. Drop the bars. Oops, it was supposed to be a 3. Sorry, guys. Set it equal to the negative. And we're going to solve. So y equals 5. And y equals negative 11. Again, we should check our solutions. So let's do that. So if we put 5 here, 5 plus 2 is 8. 8, the absolute value of 8 is 8. 8 times 2 would give us 16. That's good. Negative 11. So negative 11 plus 3 is negative 8. The absolute value of negative 8 is positive 8 times 2 is 16. So you know both solutions are correct.